Good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Illinois. Yesterday afternoon in the oh-so-wonderful noon tip-off game, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to beat Illinois 71-68, sweeping our rivalry for the year. Our rivalry. How funny was that this year? Improving Indiana's record to 19-8 on the season, 10-6 in the Big Ten. Right now, sitting in the Big Ten, I believe, on our own in third. Let me see. Had that up for a second there. Yes, right now on our own in the weird ties that we've had in the Big Ten standings this year. Currently sitting in third place. Purdue still at that top spot. Northwestern and then Indiana. Following right behind. Man, what a game that was. What a wild one that was. One that we've kind of seen recently. Indiana digs another hole for themselves in the first half. Just came out looking both very mentally and physically tired in this game. Some tough turnovers, just allowing Illinois to out-hustle them on the boards. That's kind of really the spot that you saw it happening. A lot of offensive rebounds for Illinois, allowing them to get a lot of second chance points on their missed shots. And that coupled with allowing Mayer on the Illinois team to just catch fire, leaving him open for 2 threes at one point that really kind of started a surge from Illinois. Whereas in the last game we had against them, he only scored 2 points for Illinois. Woodson, obviously, in the halftime, as the guys stated in the post-game show, laid into them and really got on the guys to get going. And that, along with coaching adjustments that we have seen happen, was what got Indiana back in this game and caused, again, a collective Indiana Hoosiers blood pressure to skyrocket for another game. We're burning a lot of calories watching these games here in February, and that's how February is. And the one thing you kind of take away from this is that this is a February that it's great that we are pulling these out. I don't want to overstate that enough, or I can't overstate that enough. Past IU teams, especially last year, this is the time where we would keep hearing the hump speech from Coach Woodson. We would keep hearing all of this. Talk about got to get things over, got to get this team over the hump, got to get things going. We were so close, and you look back to those games, and remember we made excuses then that it was partially because of injury. We had Trey Galloway out for a stint last year during some very close games that we wish we could have had in the end of the season, and this year we've had some major injuries, and we've overcome those as well. I think that is something equally. With these tough starts and these mental starts and how physically and emotionally tired we feel like we are, that I have some solace. And again, I've probably preached this too much. You guys are probably tired of me talking about this, but I know it's on the back of all of your minds as well. We still have Xavier Johnson sitting in the chamber, getting ready to fire him off. And again, I know he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be himself, but you can see in each of these games where he would make an impact, where he would be someone that would relieve some of that stress, where when Jalen has those windows where he struggles, he would be that calming factor. He would be that guy pestering the other team's point guard that just seems to be able to get downhill on any of IU's defenders. He is that thing that's just can click the team over to the next level, and I really hope when he comes back, he's going to live up to what all of us are hoping he can be. Obviously, again, I don't want it to happen too soon. I don't want him to be injured, but it's going to be so nice when we do get him back. Thanks for being with us, guys. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. You can see I'm here all alone by myself this time because Martha is on very important assignment right now. Martha traveling down I-69, headed to the women's basketball game, the last home game of the season, senior night for a lot of these great seniors that we have on this IU team and everything. And Martha has hung up the broom for a bus driver's hat of sorts, traveling with a third grade traveling team, traveling down there to let those ladies see these Lady Hoosiers make history. And it's a great thing, cultivating the next generation. So I know Martha's probably listening to this in the car as they head down, and so I've got to talk to you. And this is it's the Spartans traveling team that's there with Martha. You ladies need to cheer loud. You ladies need to scream and get loud for the Hoosiers in there. You can wake up. Tell your parents that I instructed that you have that extra sugar there. Get that sugar rush. Get that energy. Give it to those ladies on the court, because they're gonna need your energy. They're gonna love you out there and everything. So, Spartans, do your job. Let's get this win for the women's today. So, anyways, shifting back to the game yesterday, it's tough to talk about and think about what is happening in these tough starts. What is the reasoning behind these tough starts? How do we get over this? How do we get going? And it's I think just a product of being in February, a product of not being locked in completely, and just needing to make those plays and get some early success in the game. Maybe it's the coaching staff needs to draw up a few plays to get some rhythm in the offense, get the guys going downhill and going in the right way. And on the defensive side, just kind of locking in on your man and just not making those mental mistakes on screens and knowing the scouting report. That was a factor, I think, to a degree, with how Mayer was handled at the beginning, is that we were going under a lot of those screens for him, and he's a player that in the scouting report, he doesn't want to drive. He wants to shoot first. So you got to fight through those screens on him. And as far as on the offensive side, obviously, I think one thing that factored into it, again, I never want to make an excuse, but the foul calling in this game was very loose. They let on both ends, they let the teams get at it underneath, and Trace was getting nailed and was getting off his rhythm. I think coupled with just Trace seeming a little more loose with the ball than he has been at the end of this season. We saw it a lot towards the beginning of the season when he had, and I don't mean this too much in the negative, but softer games where when double teams would come, or when he would drive and a guy would dig down, the ball would get knocked loose against him a lot. I think that we saw a little bit of that again, and that could just be him tired. I mean, the guy's been playing and shouldering a lot of the weight for Indiana in these games, and this is something that's very interesting, because we talked about earlier in this season and during the non-con how deep this bench was for Indiana, and we were just excited about how that was going to help us. And with how mentally and physically tired some of these guys are, it should be something that we can count on right now and go to right now when the starters are struggling, and when Indiana's seen themselves in these holes. The positive is that, again, we fought back out of these holes, and when last year's team wouldn't, but we just didn't get the positive minutes from the bench like we have. Jordan, I think, is still struggling to come back and get his footing. After he's been back, he only got 4 minutes in this game and didn't really get to impact it very much. Would have maybe liked to see him get a little bit more of a run. He could have been a help on the defensive rebounding side to limit the other team for that. Malik, when you're looking at the plus minuses, Malik was the only player in the positives with plus minuses from the bench. And I like where he is in his development right now. I think Malik, we put a lot on him at the beginning of the year, because against lesser opponents, we saw how good he can be. When he had the room And when he had the physical advantage against his defender, he had beautiful footwork. He was really good on the boards. He was really good underneath and everything. And then we got into Big Ten, we got into bigger competition, and he struggled with that because the guys were more physical and were able to dig down and knock things loose from him and get him off his game. And it's been great growth for him. And it's fantastic for the team and the future of the team for him to get the minutes that he has this year and see what he can do for this team moving forward, the little minutes and things that he can give. Because he's got great hands and he's great at being there and available for Trace, as Trace has expanded and continued to be good at sharing the ball with the other big that's in with him. That was obviously a really big thing that helped get us nearly back in the Northwestern game, was some of that two-man big man game. Trace Jackson Davis obviously has another stellar game. Passes Woody in the all-time scoring list and everything. That was really cool to see, and great to see Woody kind of give him a little nod at the end and everything, even taunting that we did this even without the three-point line and everything. I think A.J. Guyton's next up. I think he's about 80 points or so away from A.J., so he could probably surpass that, and then I think the top three or so like that, pretty far away. It's going to take a deep run in the tournament, or if he gets too much higher in that all-time scoring list, if we're able to see one stat, I think, to predict the future of the rest of this season, if we can look at that, then and we see him in second place leading scoring or anywhere around that, we know that Indiana went pretty deep and maybe even to the national game, because I don't think he's getting too much farther up that list. But again, he's way up there in many lists for this team. But again, a good game for him overall. I think he, again, struggled in the first half to really kind of find his rhythm and get things going, and it's just out of exhaustion from him. And like I said before, he struggled when the double teams came, and just, again, the physicality that Illinois was allowed to do within the game for the way the game was being called. A lot of balls were knocked loose from him and everything, and he ends up with 5 turnovers in the game, very unlike him, and 2 assists on the game for him. So again, overall a great game, because I mean, how are you going to complain when he has 26 points, 8 rebounds, and just 5 assists like he does, but 5 blocks, which is, again, ridiculous, 3 steals. Continues to be the man amongst boys and everything, and does some great things. The other person I want to talk about in this game that I thought had a really great bounce back game, and it's someone that Hoosier Nation is really hard on, a good majority is, and that's Miller Kopp. He made the statements in the radio show beforehand that that Northwestern game did get to him. He's a guy that is an emotional player, and we saw the kind of, I remember seeing that Big Ten Network piece where they followed him around over at Northwestern. That was kind of something I remember watching when I was kind of getting a feel for what kind of player we were getting when he transferred. And he had his heart there, and he was committed to them when he played there. And it obviously affected him to go back and have that happen to him. And he did a great job stepping up then in this game, and ended up 4 for 5 from 3, something that we need to see. And it was even stated by Trace Jackson Davis in the post game that he wants him to shoot it more. He kind of interrupted him, I think, at one point when he was talking, and says he needs to shoot it more. And Hoosier Nation is resoundingly behind you, Trace, with that we need to get him to shoot more. I think he still hesitates at some points when he has an open look chance to throw it up there. and have a go at it and give a chance. Give it a chance to get up there. I think one thing we're always tough on him about is his defense. And yes, he did struggle on Mayer in the first half. And Woody mentioned in his post game that he laid into him in the halftime, and he held him in the second half to only one made basket. He got a few free throws, which gave him the points in the second half, Mayer that is. But his defense was a lot better in the second half on him, taking care of what he needed to do in those regards. And again, it's a matchup thing always going to be for him on defense, because if he's against a driver, that's not good. He needs to be matched up against a guy similar to him, one of the shooters and things. And again, he still fights through everything and does what he can, but I want him to pull the trigger more. I want him to be able to see that a lot more. I want to see him get kicked out to and everything like that. Now, that can come from his teammates and the Steinman there. You just mentioned in chat, and I agree. That's on Jalen as well. He needs to find him when he's open. There was a point in this game where Jalen was driving and he looked off an open three from Trey Galloway at one point. So I think they need to find them for more of those three looks, him and Trey as well. Again, because Trey is shooting him at a high clip. While it's at a low volume, he is shooting them with a high percentage at those points. And again, so maybe this shifts well into getting into Jalen Hood-Schifino in this game. And I know Hoosier Nation's been really tough on him, and we all have, because, I mean, this is what Woodson teams are about, is heralded by the point guard. A lot of emphasis on what the point guard does for this team, and a lot of weight on them to run the show and take care of things and call a lot of plays. And there's a lot of leash there for the point guards on a Mike Woodson team. And what continues to be the biggest positive for Jalen Hood-Schifino is his ability to control his emotions, his ability to stay calm under storm, under mistakes. He's got that kind of memory of a housefly. He forgets quickly, and it's just cool-headed. And you see a lot of times when the guys huddle up during games that some will be freaking out or whatever, and he brings that calmness into the huddle and that focus for the team. I mean, all of Hoosier Nation was screaming at him at the end of the game when he threw away that pass. It was a tied game, and he fumbles that pass at the top of the key for a runaway dunk for Illinois, but then goes on the other end, has short-term memory, doesn't try to over-hustle or do other things to compensate for that, and makes plays, and we get the basket on that end. And then to come back on the other side, get a great defensive stop as well within those regards as well on a drive by his man where I felt that he stayed really well with him. He didn't initiate the contact. There was contact on both sides, and did a good job of going up and rejecting. I saw a lot of ball. That's, as Robbie Hummel even said, yeah, this is Big Ten ball. That's a play on to me. And I would agree with that, especially how things were called against Trace Jackson Davis. That would be probably, along with the inconsistencies that you see from Big Ten officiating, is the stark difference in which fouls are called underneath the basket with the big guys, and then anyone under 6'5", the fouls that they get called in their favor is pretty interesting. And I say 6'5" because Jalen is 6'6", and when he goes under, it feels like he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time when he's driving to the basket. But that's another rant for another day. But But I thought that was a clean play, and those were a lot of good plays. And again, we tend to focus on the negatives when negatives come, and we miss those little positive moments that happen. And it's weird to have this mentality and how we're talking about this game, because in the end, it's a win, guys. And a win is a win, and we want to always talk about and focus on that's what matters, because that's the difference between last year and this year. Again, not to focus on that too much since it was already stated, but look at how well this team is battling back and how this team can overcome these games. That definitely qualms my emotions when I'm watching these games just a little bit, not completely, because again, I am still a Hoosier fan, and emotional watches is what we do. But I have a little bit better feelings when I'm watching these games, knowing that IU has it within their ability to be able to come back and make adjustments now and find a way to battle through these games and get a W. This is something that is going to serve IU so much when it comes to the tournament, because you're dealing with games that turn around so quickly. Scouting is not what it can be. You don't know these teams. You're faced up against teams that you've never seen before, and it's the teams that can make those adjustments in the proper way that do well in the tournament. It's the teams that have fought through adversity, that have had to struggle for their seed, to struggle for their position and where they are, that do well in those situations and can overcome those situations. I'll take that over a team that is sweeping everyone, loses a few, and in those type of struggle games. I wouldn't take that team overall, but in those struggle games, if you have a game where you are down by 15 at half in the tournament, I'll take this Indiana team over an Indiana team that has blown everyone out for the better part of the season, because I feel better about this team coming back and finding that win. Because, again, last year they would have rolled over and they have showed their belly in situations like that. So it's great to see that. And speaking of the tournament, obviously the great news that we heard yesterday as well was the top 16 was announced from the selection committee. And man, oh man, doesn't it feel good, Hoosier Nation, to be called a 4 seed. Not only that, but number 13th in their rankings and the top 4 seed in the tournament right now. So much better than what we had last Selection Sunday. It's going to be such a better Selection Sunday going into this year, and I look forward to watching those live streams from the players as they're watching in the players' lounge, and their excitement and energy and everything. And just great to be arguing and looking at how high of a single-digit seed can we achieve. And again, I'm not a bracketologist. I'm not going to say I know all of that. I don't pay attention outside of the Big Ten too much with college basketball, so I can't say how things are going to trend. But with our schedule going forward, I don't see anything that is really going to harm us to the degree to jump us too much farther down than, I think, worst case scenario right now. Let me find some wood to knock on. Indiana drops to like a 6 seed. It'd have to be some very ridiculous things that happen that pops Indiana up to a 3, I think. That's hard fetched for me to see moving forward in this the rest of the season. And speaking of that, it isn't an easy rest of the season. We still have 4 games left on the schedule. Tuesday at Michigan State, always a tough game. Very late start to that one as well, 9 p.m. They're going to bring it. Then the rematch against Purdue at Mackey on Saturday, February 25th. That's going to be hard to see for us. They're going to be out for it, but again, Purdue has been struggling. There is oddly enough, in the how things can go in different scenarios, there is a world where that's going to be a very big game for the possibility of Indiana getting a Big Ten regular season title. It's still within the realm of possibility. Those possibility percentages may be fairly low, and Indiana's got to take care of some major business in a tough-ended rest of the schedule. But it is in there. It is in there and a possibility. So we'll see. Then Indiana goes versus Iowa at home Tuesday, February 28th, and then finishes March 5th with senior night at home against Michigan. So not an easy last four opponents, and it's obviously those next two away games that are a little scary, especially with how physically and mentally drained Indiana is right now. It does have me a little worried to a degree as to what they're going to be able to do. Guys are going to need to step up. Guys that have struggled on the road for this Indiana team are going to need to step up and get some things going for this team. We're going to need the bench to get going. We're going to need to see Tamar get things going for himself. Trey's going to have to continue to do well and do those things. Miller Kopp hitting those threes on the outside. And then just Jalen and Trace Jackson-Davis continue to be them. Race, again, I didn't really talk about him much in this game, but I think he impacted it the way Race has in the past, and he's been a decent race for us. So, yeah, very exciting. And up and down, tons of emotions, as there always is as a Hoosier fan right now. Excited for the seed. Excited that we're at the back end of the schedule. Sad that we're about to see the last couple games and continue, and even that, the last two home games that we will ever see Trace Jackson-Davis in an Indiana uniform, as he did officially announce that he's going to the NBA after this season, not using his COVID year for next year. So, yeah, get yourself to Assembly Hall if you can for one of these last games coming up, the Iowa game or the Michigan game, because you'll be hitting yourself when you look back on this, and we're talking about Trace in the future, that you did not get to see him in one of his last times. It's going to be a very emotional senior night for him and for Hoosier Nation to say goodbye to such a wonderful big man. And obviously we'll go more in depth on that when we do the morning after show for that one. But that'll do it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you for being with us. And again, tune in to these women's basketball games today as we celebrate the seniors and a monumentous team season that they have had. Such an exciting time again. So blessed are we that are Indiana basketball fans to have these two teams to cheer for in this season. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening along. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you're here on YouTube watching it. Thank you to those watching on the podcast streams and everything. We'll be back again the morning after the next show. Until then, guys, go out there, have yourself a wonderful day. And as always,